Hey guys, my name's Jordan and we're here at my shop, Tweed-auto-garage. And today I'm going to be running you through the process of getting a car inspected with us. So here we have my personal car. This is something I brought off the auctions here in Japan. And the reason we do car inspections is because one, you guys aren't actually able to physically see the cars if you're overseas, which makes buying a car a lot scarier. I know when I go and buy a car, it's either got to be super cheap or I want to have a thorough look at it. We try do our best to give our customers exactly what we ourselves would expect if we were sending someone to go inspect a car for us. We often end up saving our customers from buying complete disaster cars, or actually, if we go and see the dealers in person or a private person, we can normally get the price down as well. So it's kind of a win-win for the cost of the inspection. Before we get into the inspection, the costs of what we charge, if you didn't already know, was 20,000 yen, which is about 150 US dollars at the current exchange rate, and transportation costs on top of that, which is gasoline and road tolls here in Japan, which obviously vary depending on where the car is. But we're not limited to any such area, so wherever you find a car, we will go to it because obviously there's good cars throughout Japan, so no need to worry about that. But yeah, let's start. So the general way we kind of do an inspection is we'll just do a visual inspection around the outside of the car. And while we're doing this inspection, if you guys are free, we will actually video call with you so we can go around the car with you and then also ask the seller or the dealer any questions that you might have or any concerns. As well as, if possible, trying to test drive the car and just make sure the general running condition is good. Right, so we start off with around the car with just a visual inspection, and then we make notes of anything we find, and then obviously take photos of each corner, look down the sides for any dents or waviness in the paint, and any panel gaps or anything strange, and then we'll come back to that later and investigate further. But once we get into the full inspection, we'll start off at the front door, and then we'll work our way right around the car, coming back to here. So we'll start off with the interior. So we'll open the door and we'll give the interior a good look over. It may not seem super important, but if there's things like door trims scratched up or torn, all these things are costs that you might not have expected, and that might bug you. And to get this piece for especially a Japanese car that might never have been sold in your country can actually be quite a big deal. So we'll have a look in detail on every panel and get photos to make sure that you know exactly what the car's condition is, and if there's anything that needs replacing, you can account for that. We will also get into the car, we will turn it on, and then we'll check indicators, wipers, all the switches in the car, aircon, radio, all the functions are working as they should. Of course, this can also lead to a cost if not everything is working possible, and just be a headache if it's got a wiring gremlin or something like that. We'll then check under the carpet, check the seats condition, make sure it's not torn, fold this back, look at the rear seats, look at all the panels in the back, make sure everything's in a good condition, and if it's not, let you know exactly how it is so you can account for that when you're purchasing the car. Obviously, we go into more detail than what I did right now, but that's just a brief example of how the process sort of goes for the interior side of the car. And so now we start the structural inspection. So how we look for damages and evidence of repair is there's a few key things which you can look out for. So first we'll start off with things like the door locks, and if you look at the holes here, you're able to see if it's been taken off before. There'll be scratches and marks in there of the screwdriver being in there. Same with on the front side. Around here also is a common place for cars, especially older cars, to get rusty, because obviously, if you think about it this way, when the car gets rained on, if it's sitting outside or wherever, the water naturally comes down the window here through this gap and gets in there and obviously collects in a pocket, potentially. and then it leads to that area and areas like that being more susceptible to rust. And then we'll also have a look under here and have a look at the spot welds. We'll be able to see if these have been tampered with and a new quarter or sill has been welded on. After we've got that far and we've confirmed the condition, we will then go underneath the car and we will check the condition underneath the car for rust, spot welds on the sills to make sure they haven't been tampered with as well. Going along there, we'll take detailed photos of the underside. Again, with the old cars, normally on the sills or the rocker, they may have been jacked up or just impacted. But it's normally pretty easy to see once you get under the car. Sometimes it's hidden by side skirts, but we get right under there and make sure we know exactly the condition of how it is. Also, we look under there, especially for performance cars, we'll check to see if there's any different aftermarket parts fitted. This can obviously be a good thing or a bad thing. It may be the difference of you spending more on the car, putting a higher bid on if it's got some really expensive, nice parts on it. Then moving forward, we go and we check gaps in the fenders, make sure all those look normal. We then come down here, we'll have a look at condition like rotors, you see if they look super worn or not, condition of the wheels, and then obviously suspension and stuff like that. See if there's any leaks, because obviously that'll be a factor of how much we're going to spend on the car. And then again, if there's nice aftermarket parts, you'll want to know as well, because that'll, as said before, be a factor. I will open the bonnet too. And so coming to the front, we'll look at the car here. Now the bonnet's up, it's a bit harder to tell, but we'll kind of start off and we'll look at the bonnet gap, if that looks suspect, or this car has actually been in a small front impact as well. As you can see, this one's pretty obvious with the bumper damage. Another obvious thing to see is this headlight looks super nice. This one obviously doesn't, which is a bit strange. They don't just age like that. So one of these has been replaced. That's pretty evident. So for this particular car, we're obviously a little more concerned and we're going to dig deeper. So after that, we can then kind of go ahead and confirm maybe where the accident was. We'll start off and we will look at the bolts for the bonnet. We'll see if they've either been taken off. You've got to see scratches. This one has scratches, or sometimes if it's someone trying to be super tricky and trick maybe less experienced people, they'll paint it over and you'll be none the wiser. Another place you'll check, obviously being a front crash, probably the most common part is for this front radiator or core support to be replaced. And we'll have a look and make sure none of the spot welds have been tampered with. You'll be able to see pretty easy if they've been changed from genuine or not. We'll also check for things like if it's been in a front impact, normally the radiator is on an angle or bent or not sitting right. These are just things that are known to be hidden, and it's super good to make sure you're looking at that in detail to make sure you know you're not buying a wreck. If you know it's a wreck and you're buying it, that's okay, but if it's something you thought was mint and you end up buying a wreck, of course you're going to be pretty disappointed. And then again in the engine bay, when I brought this car off auction, all this was on the auction sheet, so I knew about that. But what I didn't know, which was a good surprise, is it's had a Cusco oil cooler, aftermarket little intake pipe here. It has some random coils and stuff on it, which is all like obviously good points. So there's stuff like that as well. Like, oh, maybe I would have bid a little higher on this car if I had known it's had this stuff, which is worth X amount over the car's price. So check the engine as well. We'll obviously check oils, fluids, and then see if there's any oil leaks around the engine. It's a super good sign if the engine hasn't been cleaned before. That way you'll be able to see if there's been any oil seeps or anything like that, and see if it's a major oil leak or not. If the car has been washed recently and it's all super shiny, clean, it may look really nice, but it might actually be a bad sign. So what we like to try do is let the car run and then take it for a test drive and then actually check that again to make sure no oil leaks appear. And then we'll get under the car as well and check from the underneath. Normally see them from under a little easier. Also checking around the gearbox to make sure there's no leaks around that as well, because that's obviously has fluid in it, so it has the potential to leak as well. Right, so that is the basic engine bay inspection. Also stuff like the corners in the engine bay, and on particular cars there are particular things you need to look out for, but areas like that are prone to rust, so they get looked with a lot of detail. And yeah, basically as we find suspicious stuff, we look more into the area if there's been a panel replaced or a big accident there. Closing this up. I mean, yeah, obviously photos and videos all given to you after we've finished the inspection. I mean, same with the other side. We already kind of know what we're doing. Take photos. I mean, you check this side of the car, make sure paint condition, panel gaps all even, nothing strange going on. Make sure there's no chips in the glass. And then the rear side, basically the same as the front. The rear is probably a little more susceptible to rust though. So we will check under here. Normally behind the back quarter panel where the chassis rail is, up there where basically as the wheel spins it'll flick stuff up. If it's been in a snowy area where there's salt on the road, if it's not been washed off, that area is pretty likely to rust out of anywhere else in the car. And then moving back, we will get under the car, under the back side as well, and we'll check under there to make sure there's been no evidence of accident, none of the floor panels have been crumpled up. This is something that's pretty easy to hide if you don't really go and inspect the car. And finally, we want to look at the trunk. We'll check all the panel gaps there, make sure everything looks in line. Again, with the lights, you better see if those have been replaced as well. We will then open up the trunk and then, very much like with the front of the car, we will check these bolts, check the scratches or if they've been painted over. And then once we've confirmed that and something's looking suspicious, we'll look even more further into detail. We'll check the bolts here, make sure they haven't been taken off, and then we'll check along the seam, make sure the seam is original. Lift up here, check the spot welds, make sure none of those have been tampered with. Close it up. Bit of a mess in here, I know, but it's all right. We will then remove the tire out of here, the spare tire and all the interior pieces, and we will check that the boot floor hasn't been replaced or it's not been rusted out. This is a pretty common area, especially in older cars. If there's been water that's seeped from the trunk into the boot and it's just piled up, it may cause rust or rust hole. And then let's just say we didn't find any evidence of the rear panels being replaced, any rear impact from here. Some of that's pretty easy to hide is obviously the rear quarters. If it's been in an accident, they can obviously just pull them out without replacing a quarter and fill it full of body filler. But what we'll do is we'll pull back the panels inside the trunk, and then you'll be able to see in through there if the steel itself is wavy or has looked like it's been hit with a hammer or has been pulled with a spot puller. So if there'll be heat marks, that'll indicate that it's been pulled with a panel beating tool like that. And then also, if it doesn't have that and it has been repaired, they might have painted it. If it's been painted in the boot as well, that's a dead sign that something's not quite right. So once we've confirmed the exact condition of that, we can move on. And then another point to note, you might see cars online that look super nice, mint, shiny underneath. They're normally the ones you want to stay clear of, the ones that have been just freshly sprayed with black undercoat. The exhaust has been sprayed with silver heat spray. It's pretty easy to tell on those online auction photos, but I think a lot of people can get caught out because it looks, if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, it looks visually really mint, but that's probably like that's the car you want to stay dead clear of unless you want to fix a whole bunch of rust. So yeah, we try to give our customers through our knowledge of cars and experience in the industry, the best evaluation of the car's true condition and in what you might be looking in repairs if you did say want to fix up all the little issues on the car, or vice versa, if it's got all this nice stuff on it, how much extra this car may be worth putting a bid on. Just that fact alone, and then also being able to get the price on the car through the dealer, is enough reason, in my opinion, to go and get an inspection done. But that is completely up to you whether you want to go ahead and book an inspection with us or not. I hope you guys learned something today. This quick little rundown of the inspection process gave you guys a good idea of exactly how it all runs. Of course, if you have any questions about it, feel free to drop us a comment down below, send us an email, and we'll be able to answer whatever question you have. But for now, guys, we'll see you in the next video. The next video will be all about parts. So if you're not interested in cars, but you are interested in parts, that's one for you. Make sure you wait around for that, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.